how can you possibly plug a diversity gap if you don't even have them funneling in through the first? So we do believe that diversity in teams starts with the diversity in your recruitment process.
Yep.
So get that right first. The next piece is, what are you doing with these highly diverse and talented, in our case, often female staff? So we found that having a really clear development program is important, because the other side of this too is if you get the recruitment right, what's happening is your competition just poaching them after their first year,
exactly.
18 months.
Welcome to Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast, where we tackle all sorts of great topics in the areas of recruitment, job searching, mindset, technology, marketing, culture, and lots more. It's amazing what you'll pick up. Thanks for joining me. Well, welcome everyone. Another fantastic episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. It's episode 60. We're coming at you live from the 2024 RCSA Talent X conference. It's a fantastic event, lots of great speakers, and one of them is with me right now. I've got Amanda Chisholm from Kaizen Recruitment, and we're going to be chatting all about talent diversity, how to attract it, leverage it, and retain it. So welcome, Amanda.
Thanks for having me, Saul.
Thanks for coming on this show. But I thought I'd give everybody a little bit more of a background or a rundown into who Amanda is. With more than 4 years' experience in non-banking financial services recruitment, Amanda spends her time working in legal, risk, and compliance, specialising in funds management, superannuation, insurance, and wealth management. She's been recognised as the #1 recruitment consultant in her space, winning multiple awards, including the SEEK SARA Award for Recruitment Consultant of the Year 2023, and also a finalist in 2022. Amanda's commitment to being recognised as a subject matter expert and leader in her field resulted in her promotion to director at Kaizen Recruitment in 2020. She cares deeply about her candidates and the clients she partners with. She brings a higher level of energy and enthusiasm into everything she does. Amanda's dedication to her clients and candidates extends beyond her professional life. She volunteers her time with several not-for-profit companies and charities that focus on animals, the environment, women, and family violence. She's also an avid reader, has travelled to 97 countries, that's incredible, and loves to spend time camping, hiking, scuba diving, wherever she can. So everybody, please welcome Amanda Chisholm once again. First of all, 97 countries. When did you find the time?
I was quite fortunate. I think growing up, my parents like to travel a little bit. And
Nice.
also I chose my first couple roles based on my ability to travel and the flex around that. And I had a pretty good stint of travel before I ended up in Australia.
Is that your first recruitment role you chose based on travel?
No, I actually ended up working, I suppose, in university, almost like an intern for a few oil and gas and exploration companies.
Nice.
And post-university ended up getting a full-time gig there. And it took me everywhere from Alaska in the middle of the winter to Mexico and the States in the summer. And with big breaks, I was probably able to get through quite a bit of Central America and South America and the Caribbean too. So that was pretty good.
I've been to some of those places, but nowhere near as many as you. So it's on my list.
Just need a lot of time.
You do. Yeah, as a recruiter, not so easy, as we just mentioned. But speaking of recruitment, I'd love to get your backstory just a little bit, just to get a sense of how you got into recruitment in the first place, because everybody's got a great recruitment origin story, including myself. Tell us a bit about how you fell into this industry.
Fell in is probably the exact right nomenclature for that. My family probably don't even still think that this is a real job. So unless you're in sciences or you're a lawyer, it's not a real job. I was in the STEM sciences actually, and quite mathy in that sense, and worked in a lab, at a genetics lab after that consulting gig. And it was interesting in some senses, but I think, as you well know, research can be quite lonely and independent. Yep. And then I was a team lead for the genetics company there. And I think what I realized that I really loved about that role was I managed a small team, and it was probably the interactions with the overseas teams and things. But what I didn't love was being in a cold room by myself for a long time. So I took a big break again, I guess going back to that travel piece. And probably about a year and a half later, I ended up here, which is a story for another day. But my first gig here, I really didn't want to be back in a lab. I thought, okay, Australia, let's try something different. So I took a marketing and sales kind of gig, and it involved quite a bit of recruiting for that team as well. And I liked the clients we were working for were not-for-profit, and that probably really aligns to my values, and love that. And then someone probably pointed out an ad one day and were like, I actually think that would be a great role for you. So I applied to a recruitment ad. I got the gig, but it was just before COVID. So probably only sat in that business for about 4 months, first in, first out. So that was quite painful. And then you thought, oh, it's COVID. Maybe I should have stayed in that lab. And I did actually think about going back in at that time, because naturally quite a few roles on the market, but I guess I'm a sucker for pain. So decided to try it again. And Matt McGilton at Kaizen ended up offering me a position quite quickly. So, and I've been there ever since. So
that's amazing. I've got a similar story. I used to be a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And my brother said to me, you should try recruitment. And one day I was on the train. We're talking way back now, 24 years. There was an ad in the 9 to 5 magazine. And it said, an IT recruiter needed, will train you, no need for experience. So I answered the ad and here I am. So interesting story.
Great minds.
Yeah, crazy. But I really appreciate that. Now, Kaizen, I've heard the term before, and I've actually interviewed someone on the podcast that also talked a lot about Kaizen. So tell us a bit more about what you know about that. It's a Japanese concept, isn't it?
It is. It's a concept of continuous improvement and a continuous improvement mindset. Yep. And so my managing director and the founder of Kaizen is very much of that ethos, and I align really closely to that as well. Yes. And I think those of us that quite like maybe Simon Sinek's infinite game, I think in recruitment, it is one of those things that applies really strongly. Yep. You can't just sit and rest on your laurels. People will forget you quite quickly.
Definitely. Everybody forgets you very quickly.
Yeah. So I think it is self-improvement, but it's also those little bits and pieces you can do along the way every day. Atomic habits, those 1% points of difference that just can eliminate your competition by you just working on your own game in your own lane.
Love it. Yeah, I'm big on that. And I love a lot of Japanese philosophies. They're so good at everything they do. They ritualize everything. They make everything into a concept that's easily applicable. And Kaizen is something that's worth checking out as well.
Japan's probably one of the few countries I haven't been to yet that's still very high on my bucket list.
It's amazing. Everything in Japan runs like an absolute well-oiled machine. Even if you go to the counter, everything's decorated and packaged up like it's origami. It's beautiful. Even when I buy Uniqlo stuff online, it's delivered to my house. The packaging is like nothing else. Everyone else throws it to you in a satchel or just plastic bag, but Uniqlo is perfectly packaged. So it just says a lot about the Japanese culture and the Japanese ethos in terms of perfectionism and doing things well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is interesting. But let's kick off and talk about our topic today, talent diversity. Amanda is extremely passionate about talent diversity. And first of all, I'd like to maybe get your definition of talent diversity, because it could mean a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think it does to different people. And it's probably part of our business ethos as well, is just to educate and consult on what diversity is. Diversity probably to me is difference. I think if you make it really simple, that's the best way to do something. And what is talent diversity? It's that difference of your human capital on your team. I think for us, it's probably quite a lot easier now to speak about it with HR teams, particularly like the optics that are put on them and some of the metrics that they have to hit. But it was always a little bit harder to go that next level in and speak to the hiring managers about you should consider because. And I think for us, it's not just qualitative anymore. There's so much quantitative research to show that if you have different data sets and data points from the people who work there, whether it's, for us, it's often gender, and that has been the first box that needed to be ticked, but cultural, ethnic diversity, neurodiversity, whether it's people that may have experienced disabilities in their careers as well, or even socioeconomic. There's so many different layers of that. But what that does is if you have all these different data sets from people's lived experiences, it means that the inflow of information into your teams and all of the different lenses and data sets that come in can then generate for your business a better outflow, right? Yeah. So you can be more creative, more collaborative, you can challenge, better strategy. So I think at the end of the day, when we're able to say, okay, your HR teams are looking for this, your boards are very concerned right now about diversity for different reasons. And now in the middle, you can say to a hiring manager, you're actually going to outperform your competition. And as a result, you'll attract better staff in to your workplace. You'll retain that staff because they're actually enjoying the time that they're having there, because it's not just a much of a muchness.
Yep.
Because what's the difference at the end of the day between the big four banks? it's probably the fabric of those teams that are made up by the people who work there.
Love it. Love it. So true. And I love something you mentioned there was perspective, really. The more people you have and the more diversity you have, the more perspectives you have. And then you can really workshop a certain decision or a certain strategy or a certain idea. Whereas it's not a dictatorship, but it drives from the top and everybody does it the way it is and everybody toes the company line. But the more perspectives and the more voices you have, the better it is for all those reasons.
Oh, absolutely. And I think comically, and in recruitment, you get so many hiring managers to say, I want this person. And they'll say, I want Steve or whatever. Yep. And Steve has a BCom from Melbourne Uni, went to Brighton Grammar, and he's great at, he plays whatever sport on the weekend. I want a Steve. And I think for us, you'll deliver on other Steves. But what we try and do is provide lateral things as well. So maybe someone that has a marine biology degree. So it's still very data focused and very analytical. And that person's probably very smart still, but might think a little bit differently. And because at the end of the day, it's particularly working in banking and finance, everyone who works in these industries are trying, it's just small changes in portfolio construction and things like that that can make the biggest differences in performance. And if you have a bunch of Steves getting the same result and the same thoughts, you
just have clones running around.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're probably not challenging the status quo at all. And you'll end up being those dinosaurs that go extinct.
I love that. And for me, that you touched on a really good point is I love bringing ideas and insights from other industries and other crafts and hobbies into recruitment and into anything else that I do. Is that why only stick to doing the things that the industry's always done when there's so many other areas you can draw from and bring fresh perspectives and fresh ideas and fresh ways of doing things and recreate yourself and redefine yourself and be different from your competition because you're drawing on other things. So
absolutely.
Why stick to the same pool, the same pond when you've got the whole world?
I do think that sometimes when you hear people pitch their business or pitch themselves or what they're offering in competition, it sounds like much of a muchness, but I think the proof is always in the execution. So what are you actually doing outside of the delivery of that candidate or those candidates for your client that makes you a better recruiter, better business, like kind of the why work with you. And I think unless you can really hand on heart say we're different than our competition in whatever specific way that may be for you, that's probably, and I can probably give an example later of where that's working in our favor.
I will definitely hold you up on that. Absolutely. But how well are businesses really integrating this? Is it just like what's on a line on a website, or are they really getting serious about this stuff?
I think how long's a piece of string? I think that optics wise, everyone's giving lip service in my industry, at least. And I appreciate others are a little bit different. HR teams will be very focused on a metric or a KPI to hit. And that has its own constraints and challenges. To be completely frank, I would say less than 30% of businesses we work with are genuinely committed as a true partner to help us get talent diversity in.
Wow.
I can speak about a partnership that we have with one really great client and initiative that's worked very well, but it can't just be HR saying you need a female, hire that person. Like there's so many reasons that's not the right way to do it. We have probably tried in partnership to craft a better model that's not just great for the person coming in over the course of their journey. And they're not this show phony of diversity. And in fact, I've had a candidate, she was excellent. She declined a role with one of my funds management clients because she didn't want to be the first double diversity tick. So an ethnically diverse woman.
Right. Wow.
She's like, I cannot see any other female leaders there. Why would I go to that business? I don't believe that they want diversity. They just want me for a diversity poster.
Just a poster child.
Yeah. And I really felt for her in that situation. And to be fair, I probably wasn't able to advocate that they genuinely, hand on heart, wanted to make a genuine change. There might be some people in there that did want that, but I think as a whole, it very much was that optics piece. So I'd say if you commit from a HR perspective, that's step one, right? That's get in the door.
Nice.
But then it's how do you get your hiring managers on side to be like, this is a great idea. It will benefit me, will benefit my team for the long term. But then it's for that candidate that you're putting in. How do you support that person through the first 6 months, the year? Like what's their development program going to look like and the support that they'll get over the course of their tenure there? And then oftentimes right now we are seeing pressure from boards and exec teams to drive these things. But it is a lot of compliance and risk focused metrics where we know that teams, and particularly leadership teams, if they are diverse, they are much less likely to have scandals, or you would have seen Optus and Medibank this year as well. Those things just don't seem to happen as much when you have challenge of idea and challenge of decision-making from the top. So it's almost like you're getting this bookend piece, but they haven't solved the middle. And I think that's probably right now our biggest pain point with many of our clients.
Wow. Fascinating, because obviously it's something that's going to be talked about more and more in years to come. And let's hope that 30% increases quite a bit.
Well, I can say at least that we as an agency, we've been tracking diversity and our placements year on year for the last 7 years. And even from last year, it was 43% of our placements were female. Wow. And this is finance and investments. This year, we're not done yet, but we're pretty close to done for the year. And it's tracking at about 45%. So
wow,
looking like a 2% increase just from last year alone.
And what's the industry norm in the finance industry?
The industry norm is about 19%.
19.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well done.
And the pay gap, the gender pay gap for women in Australia in financial services, so the average is about 18%. The financial services is about 26, 27%. Ooh. So that probably speaks to, it's not the fact that they don't have women in their businesses. Absolutely they do, but they do not have them in high paying leadership positions or those highly skilled, highly valued positions where they're being paid a very good wicket.
Yep.
They often have them in the admin functions or support functions of those businesses.
Right. Yeah,
so,
makes sense. Makes sense. Fascinating. Well, I'd love to get into the tactics and let's get a little bit more granular. Obviously, it's great if a company or a recruitment organization partners with an organization and says, all right, great, we're going to increase your diversity. But how do we actually do that? How do we attract people? How do we utilize them and leverage their skills and grow and nurture them? And then how do we keep them and make sure they don't leave or get poached?
Oh, this is the long one. I start at the beginning, I suppose. And the attraction piece probably starts from not just our approach in speaking to our network. More than 80% of the females we placed and diverse placements we had last year came from our networks and databases. Wow. Yep. So we know that these people are not as prolific in actually putting their hands up and applying. So you need to change how you think about recruiting for your team, which for us as recruiters is great, right? If these people aren't applying for jobs and we have an active funnel of great talent, that's a pretty easy way to sell yourself into a business, isn't it? But I think that attraction piece and EVP piece with businesses, the employee value proposition is genuine and real, especially for women. And I think flexibility, thankfully, from COVID has probably made a big difference in the way that we work. And that includes the partners of women who are now able to pitch in a little bit more because their businesses are more flexible to allow the men to go pick up children. So I think it's explaining to your future talent pool that you have the things that they genuinely need to operate, because a career is a career. They could do the same job somewhere else, right? But will it be a fulfilling career that they'll stay for? So that's the retention piece. But you have to get them in the door, and they won't even consider you if they don't think that you're living and breathing what you're espousing. So we have done quite a lot of consultation with HR teams around what our market is looking for. How do you position that to your business and get your hiring managers on board as well? Because picture a trading business where markets are open all the time. You have to close off the last time zone and then hand information over.
It's high pressure. They've got no time to worry about all that stuff. They've got money to make.
100%. And when that happens, how can Sarah go pick up her children? But it does work because then you're able to log back on later after bath time and things as well. So I think it's that consultation piece is probably the first piece. The attraction piece for us is more, we find right now, it's probably more being able to source and deliver that talent to clients. And I'll give an example. A client of ours put up an ad for a front office investments position. They had, I think, more than 200 applicants and they had 0 females apply.
Wow.
So when that happens, how can you possibly plug a diversity gap if you don't even have them funneling in through the first? So we do believe that diversity in teams starts with the diversity in your recruitment process.
Yep.
So get that right first. The next piece is, what are you doing with these highly diverse and talented, in our case, often female staff? So we found that having a really clear development program is important, because the other side of this too is if you get the recruitment right, what's happening is your competition just poaching them after their first year, 18 months.
So it's recruiting is one thing, but retaining is a whole other story.
100%. So they'll get 18 months with a great brand and a great role on a CV. And what will happen is the competition will come knocking and headhunt them out. So one of our very good clients, VFMC, Victoria Funds Management Corporation, they have developed a 2-year program once these candidates come into the business, where they take them through different facets over different weeks and months, and they partner them with specific people in the business to help give them that genuine career progression. And I think knowing that you have a 2-year runway to achieve that gives them the time to actually learn and craft their skills. Because to be fair, oftentimes people at that really junior age are doing themselves a detriment by not staying long enough to learn the craft, and they just get picked out and plugged into a new team where you have to spend the first 3-6 months.
And you're going to retrain in the new system, and you never really flourish or develop, mature.
100%. And I think from there, once you have staff in there, the attrition piece is often indicative of a culture gone wrong, I think. So maybe it's lack of flexible working. Females, we know, don't get the same raises or promotions that their male counterparts get, because oftentimes they just aren't even putting their hands up, which is both sad and frustrating from my perspective. And so I think it's, how do your leaders understand how to retain and maintain career development, motivate, and then rewards along the way? And I think in today's day and age, I saw a poll the other day, it was like, what's long now in terms of a long career? And I think if someone can stay 4 or more years in an organization, that organization is probably doing quite well.
That's pretty good. I see it's about a year to 2, 1 to 2.
You guys are mercenaries, so.
True. Very interesting. But how do you actually partner with your clients to make sure they do this? Like, it's all great at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then how do you
and that's
stay on their track? Exactly.
So, like I said, we found getting HR inside or talent acquisition seems to be easier in these days, but it's the next pieces that are hard. So what we actually do is we come up with strategies, and this is not new to most businesses now, but using AI to help gender neutral ads. We balance our shortlist, gender balance. So you have a better percentage of choosing that diverse candidate, right? If the pool is therefore elevated.
That's interesting.
We've also done blind shortlists for clients as well. And what that means is the candidates are numbered, not named.
Wow.
Because we have even found that letters can indicate origin. So if you're from overseas and your name starts with an X, okay, you're probably from another country. So we take that away. We can scrub location of university. Because the hiring manager bias of a Melbourne Uni preference over an Indian MBA would be quite different. We take away things like your recreational things. So no more netball. That's not going on there. Or water polo. That's probably a male candidate. So taking that away. So just trying to make it purely about the skill set to get that first interview. And once you get past that point, it really is about that relationship-based consultation. So oftentimes we do have to coach our candidates that are diverse a little bit more than perhaps the non-diverse pools. So it is, to be honest, more work, right? You have to put more work in, more care, and you're literally nurturing these relationships and these females to get through the process. And then it's a consultation back. So we're setting time in the diary face to have chats about how did they perform, what questions did they get tripped up on, any specific feedback, and we can consult back and forth. And we bring HR talent acquisition with us along the way as well. So it's the power to influence from both sides. And then I think from that point, again, it's having your internal teams advocate for what will this do for you. So if you hire this marine biology candidate instead of this BCom from Melbourne Uni, what will that do for your performance over the long term? And you have to make it so that it's logical and pragmatic for someone to choose. So you're not just doing it for a diversity tick. You're doing it for a win for the organization commercially, because at the end of the day, what are you here to do? You're here to outperform your competition, make money for the most part. So if you're going to make more money and you're going to have less risk doing that, because oftentimes diversity creates a better risk culture.
And a happy workplace, a better morale.
And people stick around.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when that IP stays in your business and it's not being filtered into your competition and uplifting and elevating their practices, that's just a win-win all around. So I think without that ability to have that key person inside for you, like, the inside man, if you don't have that,
your inside man,
you won't get as far. So you really have to have the genuine partnerships with someone great inside.
And you touched on a really good point, is that from a recruitment point of view or a account management point of view, it's an incredible opportunity to keep having touch points with your clients. Instead of having in the first couple of months, you might be following up over years. So you've got so many more opportunities for discussions and meetings and touch points and feedback, and it really brings you a stronger and closer relationship with your client.
It definitely does. And I think all of us, how many recruiters have paused on hitting send on emails because you always wonder, like, what will this tone sound like to a client? But when they know you, I think those negative perceptions, I think, about who recruiters are and what we do can be eliminated completely when they know that you're genuinely vested in their outcomes. And so VFMC, the client I spoke about, we've run this program now for more than 3 years with them, year on year.
Well,
we also partner with other organizations like F3, which is Future Females in Finance.
Okay, cool.
And that's helping bring in a grad pool in for this client as well. So running breakfast. And so you're just going really above and beyond to service what is their genuine need. And that organization is the first sovereign wealth fund in the world to reach gender parity on their front office investments team. So, and they could not have done that without Kaizen Recruitment.
Amazing. Congratulations. Well done. That must feel really nice.
It does. It's a warm, fuzzy, happy feeling too. And you'll watch these women go through their careers for years and years to come. And you can hand on heart say, I was a real change.
You made a difference to their lives.
Getting you into that lane in the first place.
And I want to touch on one other interesting insight that I heard. Maybe you can elaborate on it for us. Is that I heard once that there's a difference in how males and females apply to jobs. So, for example, if a male sees 8 prerequisites and he has 2 out of 8, yep, no problem, let's apply. But if a female sees 8 and she has 7 or 6, she might say, I don't have that, so I'm not going to apply. Isn't that a fascinating psychological insight? How would you?
I would agree with that. I think it hasn't, that stat hasn't changed year on year for us. We know that's true. And I think going back to that example where we have one of the biggest industry super funds in Australia is trying to attract gender diversity and they have 0 women apply, like not even one irrelevant woman. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But it is because men have the confidence to say, you know what, I can do 7 things on this list. And
give it a go.
30% is enough for me to learn and challenge myself. But I think women often, and I have some maybe ideas about why this is, but I think women often feel the need to fill every criterion so that they can go in with confidence and know that they're adding value right away and not have that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, exactly.
Which so many of us suffer from. And the next piece too is, to be completely frank, like, many women have very busy home lives, and to have a 30% challenge every day.
That's a really good point.
Is hard.
Yeah.
How can you be struggling to get your kids into their clothes before kinder? And then you're on this call with another country talking about trade, what's happened with your trades the day before. And,
that's a really good point.
It's just perhaps too much for a woman's every day to take on an additional challenge.
Because you might be thinking, oh my God, I've got to learn so much to upskill while I'm working. When am I going to have the time?
I called an executive for an exec search role 2 weeks ago, and she was just really open and genuine with me and said, I just can't consider an external opportunity presently because I feel like I'm doing everything quite poorly at the minute.
Wow.
So I think that does absolutely play into it. It's like, how can I go to work and feel like I'm not doing a great job and then come home and have a day where my children are having meltdowns and have to do all of your life admin and things like that as well to maintain. And you can absolutely appreciate that. And I think perhaps men have a better ability to put that in the back of their minds and just get on with it, compartmentalize. So probably something we're working through.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Now, I want to also pivot a little bit and talk about, you touched on this a bit earlier, but I really want to dive deeper and talk about how candidates and job seekers themselves can embrace their own diversity when they go out into the world and go out into the job search. And even when they're already working, they're looking for promotions, they're looking for new opportunities within their organization. How can they embrace their diversity and really thrive?
Yeah, great question. I think people sometimes don't realize the great value that they're adding unless you have maybe someone to point it out for you. And I truly believe that I had a mentor once say this to me, and my MD, I think, hated it at the minute, but it's like every year you have to look at your PD and then go back with a red pen and write in everything else that you've done that year and your key achievements so that you yourself can articulate your value to that business and why they should perhaps reward you, whether it's financially or otherwise.
Yeah.
But I think,
sometimes they say, if you don't ask, you don't get.
100%. But I think also it's, if diverse candidates are recognizing that I came from a different socioeconomic lens than, my peer. And maybe we're putting out a marketing document. Oh, well, have you thought about this? And I think it's just that ability to critically assess or challenge from a different perspective. You are adding a genuine level of commercial value to that business, and for whatever lens of diversity you're coming from. And I think sometimes we don't speak about our diversity as well, because many types of it have not been celebrated, if we're completely honest. So if you come from an impoverished background, if perhaps you grew up in a house with siblings or parents that had hearing disabilities or vision disabilities, the average Joe wouldn't be thinking about how streets are structured, or, oh, that door is not wide enough, or all these different things. But you can bring that into your business and then create a better workplace.
Yeah, love it, love it. So I think it's really about self-awareness and embracing your differences and embracing your different perspectives, in that they're going to be valuable to a new culture, a new employer, etc., rather than thinking that if you're different, it's no good.
Oh, definitely. I think even if you look at an application at a more junior end of the market, you look at perhaps hundreds of applicants, right? And as recruiters, we're efficient. So we're scrubbing through CVs very quickly. And then you get down to maybe your 10% that you'll actually pick up a phone and have a call with. And as you're speaking to these people, you're choosing them because they tick the technical boxes, but you're also choosing because of the presentation skills, their ability to articulate their value, their ability to perhaps look strategically down the track. What does success look like in the role? So I think the better that people can start thinking about, oh, you know what, actually, I can add something different to my competition. Because at the end of the day, you only have maybe an hour or maybe 2 hours and 2 interviews to shine.
Yep.
And if you can just be that small point of difference, it's probably enough to nudge your competition out, to be fair.
And sometimes you're just looking for that breath of fresh air, whatever it is during an interview process, because we interview candidate after candidate, we speak to candidate after candidate, and that one little spark from wherever it comes from can really just make all the difference.
Definitely. I think we all know at the end of the day, especially if you have a few back-to-backs, someone that just makes you perk up and feel like this doesn't feel like work. This is actually nice.
I'm having fun now.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So really interesting concept and something to explore further, I suppose, for candidates and job seekers and employees, as well as employers, recruiters, and organizations really looking to make a difference.
Yeah, I think that difference we cannot achieve that if it's just one directional, right? I think that problems need to be approached from all different aspects, and you need to have many people promoting to get to the same ending. And I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, love it. Now, I'd love you to tell us a story or two, obviously keeping things very confidential, but I'd love to hear a story about how you and Kaizen have managed to use talent diversity in your pitch to secure a great client or a great project or a great piece of work, etc.
Do you know what? We actually had this chat the other day because we saw one of our competitors put something on their website and we thought, oh, they're copying us. But you know what? Imitation is the best form of flattery, isn't it?
Indeed.
And I think it's just about doing things first is great, but doing it well forever is much better.
There's a great saying, steer like an artist. There's a great book, Steer Like an Artist. We're all learning from each other, and then we make it our own. We put our own spin on it.
Absolutely. So how have we been able to commercially benefit from this or dislodge our competition? I give one great example. Our previous COO, Nupur Gill, was excellent at promoting diversity and everything that we do, both internally in our own team, but then externally, naturally, for our clients. And she's now a non-executive director. And she had written some great marketing content around, you know what, we should probably explain what we're doing to the network. And this was a few years ago now. And we had a client see this, reach out to us. Yeah. And they actually, to be fair, they weren't a client yet. We had those initial conversations and they had a recruitment partner for years who would be that old, stale, pale and male kind of fabric. And that recruitment partner had no idea nor care for diversity. Yep. And this organization really did care about making a difference and a change internally. So we dislodged them and we are a retained preferred partner of that business for the last 4 years now. So
amazing.
That we've been able to, and not that you want to monetize what you're doing for the greater good, but if you can monetize it while you do great things for the world and for people, I think we are a business in recruitment, much like anything else. And if you can commercialize what you're doing, I think it really drives the why behind it for other agencies. Because I know that many of our peers just probably roll their eyes a little bit around this and think it is just a lip service, but it isn't. So that's probably one really great example I can give.
Love it, love it. And you're right. It's a knock-on effect of what you're already passionate about. You don't just go and put a whole pitch together just to win business.
No.
But it's just a knock-on effect and it's more of a three-dimensional result for what you're extremely passionate about anyway. And it's just going to build a better, longer lasting, standing relationship.
Exactly.
And everybody's going to be happier anyway.
100%. And I think obviously if you have consultants that are getting inbound work because of the work that you're doing in the space, right? And they're not even having to work as hard on BD. And as an agency, you're getting recognized and rewarded for the good work that you're doing in that stream as well. I think it just really pays dividends at the end.
Yeah. And from even this interesting, I just came to my head now as we were speaking, is that it also allows you to nurture and retain your own recruitment staff because they're having such success winning business and working with clients due to the story or the philosophy of the agency.
That's a really good point that I probably hadn't thought about. But I think, yeah, we're proud. I think when you can go to work with pride and you don't feel like someone just trying to clip a fee or be transactional, you are here from day one of this person's career. And we have placed some of our candidates more than 4 times in Matt's run his agency for 17 years or so. So many of these people are, if you want to call them repeat customers, but you're following their career journey for years and years. And if you treat people with kindness and respect, you really value trying to make a difference in what they do in their career, but also, the people in the spaces that you touch. I think that itself pays dividends as well.
Awesome. Love it. Well, there's obviously a lot we can discover, but Amanda's going to be a little bit later on at the event speaking about exactly this. So if you're around, check it out. 3:00. Is that right?
Yeah, 3:15.
3:15. Yeah. She's going to be on stage talking more about talent diversity. But I'd love to move a little bit and just talk a little bit about your agency, Kaizen. Tell us a bit about you. Give us a bit of a plug for your agency. What do you do? Why we should work with you?
Why should we? Well, diversity, obviously. So who are we? We've been around for many years. As I mentioned, Matt McGilton is quite well recognized in the space and his brand as well. I'll tell you what, we're not a banking recruitment agency, but we certainly are very deep in funds management, as you said, superannuation, insurance, wealth, and asset consulting. Within that, we do consider ourselves a vertical specialist. And when I say that, for example, I am legal risk and compliance, which in itself is quite broad, but I have a team underneath me. We have ESG and responsible investment, front office investments, naturally, finance and accounting. We have investment operations and fund accounting, sales and distribution, marketing, and wealth. So I'm probably forgetting a few off the top of my head, but so that's the what we recruit. And then within that, we consult businesses on salary and data points quite a bit. So we publish a lot of this for free. We don't charge for that or nor make people give us their details to have access to that. We also host quite a few roundtables in our space. So we get executives and leaders around the table, Chatham House rules naturally, to have conversations about challenges that they're facing so that they can then take this offside maybe and have a chat like, oh, I am actually experiencing that. Can we have a chat later?
Cool.
And in terms of levels of recruitment, we probably specialize more mid-market to executive level, but not that naturally we would recruit those more junior levels with our more junior consultants in there as well.
Awesome. And you're based mainly in Melbourne or other states as well?
So 2 physical bricks and mortar offices, Melbourne and Sydney, but then we do recruit nationally. I think the only state we haven't recruited for in the last 12 months is probably NT. Our clients aren't there, but Tasmania, South Australia, Queensland, as well as WA. We have an operational back office overseas as well.
Perfect. Awesome. And if people want to find you, just go to the website, social.
Website, LinkedIn as well. We're probably quite prolific there. We do not use Facebook or Instagram very well. But I'd say those are probably 2 of our best platforms.
I think LinkedIn has become the platform for the recruiters out there these days.
I know. I'd say it's like your work famous.
Yeah, everybody's on LinkedIn. There's a plug for LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. All right. So just find you on Kaizen Recruitment, on your Amanda Chisholm, and everybody will find you.
Hopefully, yes.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Darren, for having me.
But Amanda, it's been really amazing to have you. I had a thoroughly interesting conversation. I've learned a lot. I'm definitely going to be re-listening to this and learning and gathering more insights. And I'll be listening to you later on at 3:15. But I always like to leave the last word of my podcast to my guest. So is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with about anything, really? Could be about diversity. It could be about recruitment. It could be about anything.
Oh, wasn't prepared for that one.
Put you on the spot here.
I might probably put a recruitment for yourself. So probably for the recruiters and the consultants out there. I am an example of someone who doesn't come from industry. I also don't have a BCom, by the way, and I recruit in finance, finance space.
Right.
So I think I also was subject to you lose your job in COVID the very first time you've had a recruitment role. So I think as agencies, I find the hardest thing that we do is recruit for our own teams. So I may just probably say to those who are thinking about a career in recruitment, just probably, if you like to win, if you're competitive, if you can dust yourself off when you face adversity quite quickly and easily, and if you like to project manage and be very busy, this is probably the job for you.
Amazing. Love it. Absolutely. Recruitment is a fantastic industry. It's a fantastic job. I've been doing it for close to 25 years. I've seen a lot, and it's a lot of fun as well when you can do it for the right reasons.
Yeah,
I think that's the key.
Some days better than others, but
That's right.
most days quite good.
Yeah, just like it is. But Amanda, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everybody out there, we'll see you very soon for our next episode of Saul Searching. Bye for now. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. If you'd like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@saulrecruitment.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.